everyone. This is Shilpa Rao, and today I'm going to share my startup story as an AI entrepreneur with all of you. And hopefully, you find this journey interesting. And some of the lessons that I've learned, I'm going to share with you. And hopefully, this is something that you could learn from or use as an experience. So, a little bit about myself. As I mentioned, I'm an AI entrepreneur. I have a startup which is within a very large company. And growing the startup from a mere concept to 30 plus patents, 500 crore rupees business, and delivering a multi billion dollar uplift for several companies. This has been a very, very enriching journey for me. Personally, I am a mother of two very adorable furry daughters. I'm a writer, I'm an artist, and recently I've won the Sponsors Award for Mrs. India Worldwide 2019, which was held in Greece. That's a bit about myself, and just going back to kind of understand where I'm coming from. So, a little bit background about me from my childhood. I grew up in Malad, and I specifically call out Malad because that was my whole world back then. Malad is a suburb in Mumbai, and you would say that Mumbai is a big city, but for me, it was just Malad and that small cocoon in which I was living. I was the only child of my parents, and I was very spoiled. All my schooling was within the campus of my apartment complex, and my college was nearby, and my B school was nearby, and I never left home. In fact, I had got a medical seat for which I had really worked hard for, and I left it out because it meant that I had to kind of leave the city and go out. In fact, I actually took up a job in the current company only because they had an office in Malad. So that attached I was to Malad and to being at home and being in that particular area. But destiny had something else store for me. And today, if you see, I've traveled almost 15 countries, lived in many places. I have been traveling almost 15 to 20 days in a month. And this journey has not been very easy for me. There were many nights when I used to lie awake crying. There were many nights when I was afraid to kind of put the light off, and I had all kind of weird travel experiences in terms of I have traveled without cash, I have boarded a taxi without knowing where to go, I have landed in a completely different place, I have got deported on a flight, and lot of those kind of things, lot of those mini adventures, but looking back, I would say that entire journey was worth it. One of very important part of this journey was my very first gig, and this was in a small little village in UK. It was a very beautiful village, and we were working there with a company, and they had a office which was in the middle of the village, and it was like an old Victorian house, and some also said it was haunted, and it was a very interesting place to kind of be with. Being an only child and growing up, at home, I was not such an introvert. I was not such an extrovert, I would say. I was a very, I was an introvert. And I had very few friends, and especially now I was kind of uprooted from where I lived, and going to UK, where I didn't know anybody. I didn't many times follow the accent, and it was very difficult. It was very cold. I had landed in the middle of winter, coming from a very tropical, hot climate, and never ever seen snow in my life. It was a completely new experience. So one of my routine there was we used to finish by 4, and I used to take a bus to the place where I used to live, and it was about a half an hour journey from the office. And the bus used to come at 6, so I used to finish work at 4, and I didn't want to stay in the office after that because I was a little bit scared. And then I used to wait for 2 hours at the bus stand to for the bus. And it was very cold, and that entire village had just two stores. So one was a grocery store and one was a bakery. And the entire village, nobody actually hanged out, or you could hardly see any people on the streets, and very different from the crowded streets of Mumbai, where I came from and where I grew up. So I used to spend a lot of time in the grocery store, which was there, approximately 2 hours every day. And I used to observe. So I used to observe different aisles. I used to observe what are the kind of products, because they were very different from what we had back in India back then. And they were very different labeling. They look very different. They look very fancy. So I was very intrigued on how they would look like, what they would taste like. So I used to spend hours and hours just observing why they were kept, how they are kept, why they are there. So a lot of that. And then one day, while speaking to a store associates, I often used to see him throwing away a lot of packed ready meals, and a lot of food which was kind of trashed, like literally trashed in the trash bin. And I used to often ask them that why are they doing that? Because as a child, I grew up where my parents used to always say that if I didn't finish my food till the last grain, then I should consider myself really privileged that I'm getting food. Otherwise, there's so many kids out there who kind of had to go without food. So growing up with that kind of values, it was like criminal for me uh, that somebody is like really throwing out food, and kind of throwing it out in the trash bin. And so I asked the store associate and why they were doing it. And the reasons that they told me were the reasons that today kind of grew up into the startup, and then grew up into much more than those reasons. But that was the genesis of how we actually started up. So it's all started with that idea. And uh, when I kind of took the flight back to India after that gig, that's when I kind of wrote it on a piece of napkin from the airport in the flight, the whole blueprint of how this should be solved, and what would the product kind of will look like. Now, having said that, from where I started my journey within the office, I was a junior analyst, and kind of journey through from that through an entrepreneur was not really defined. So I would say that today many people are very hung up by their role, their job title, and what they will be doing. I would always say that your job is not defined by the title, role, or even the skill set that you have. But your job is about what you make out of it. So you can decide what you do out of it. So just to give an example, if you are a coder and you could say that what are you doing, and you would say that I'm coding, I'm writing lines of code. And there could be another person who could say, oh well, I'm writing a program which could help my company. And the third person could say, well, I am helping solve hunger. So now it depends on what is your perspective at the end of the program, at the end of the project, or the end of what you're doing. The coder would have the person who had said that he's writing lines of code would have written lines of code. The person who is writing a program would have written the program for the company, and the person who has working on solving hunger would have contributed to solving hunger. So it depends on what is your perspective, and how you look at your role, and how do you look at your job, and what you make out of it. So it's important to have an open mind, and it is up to you on what you make out of the job. So, continuing on my story, coming back, I came back with that. I was all charged up. I had this beautiful idea, and I thought this film was going to like revolutionize the world, change the world, and everything. And I came back and I showed this idea to a lot of people. Some appreciated, some did not really understand it, and it kind of went through iterations. Now, when you have an idea, it is important that you work on those ideas, and you really uh, get to a point where they actually see the light of the day, and they actually transform into what you have seen them as a vision. And sometimes I could relate to the Mia. I don't know if you have seen the movie Zero Dark 30. It's a very interesting movie on how um, they actually identified where the terrorists were, and then how this lady Mia, who's one of the characters in the movie, had a hunch, and how she really uh, went behind that, and really her conviction was finally which kind of led them to success of the know about or the terrorists. She has been working for it for a long years, and uh, how she kind of motivated everybody to take action. And sometimes you have to kind of take that role as Mia within the company to kind of make things done and get things done. And I remember myself writing on the walls just like what she's doing, and that's why I can kind of totally relate to her, saying that have you positioned it, have you talked about it to customers, have you thought about this. So it was a real push to kind of get your ideas through, get buy-in for the idea, and uh, you know make it see the light of the day. And when you are kind of doing that, many times you have to talk to a lot of people, you have to kind of share your ideas, you have to kind of talk to them, and debate with them, and sometimes they agree, sometimes they don't agree. There are many critical ways in which you are doing it. So it is always helpful to share your ideas, because that's how the ideas grow, and that's how you grow. Because there are so many perspectives that you wouldn't have thought before when you had that idea. And many people worry about sharing these ideas because they think that if you share, then the ideas would be stolen. But I don't think you have to worry about that, at least in the initial stage, because if you are really good, and if the idea is really good, and if it's original, you really have to kind of ram it down people's throat for them to kind of buy into it, believe it, and take it forward. So don't be afraid of sharing it. Don't be afraid of talking about it. Obviously there is a point in time when you have to kind of protect it, but when you're in the initial stages, share it, get it refined, get it to a point where it would make sense. And there would be many naysayers within the way. There would be many people who would put you down. There would be many people who would say this won't work, or this is like not a great idea, it is a bad idea. They might use bad words for it too. So don't worry about it too much. Just acknowledge, listen. They might have a perspective, so just listen, acknowledge, and then finally do what you want to do, because not everything is worth your time. So sometimes you just have to smile and let it go. So it's important that you identify that which are the battles that you want to win with a smile, and the ones which you have to kind of actually take a sword. So I would say for the naysayers, it is more of a smile, and do whatever you want to do, and it doesn't matter, um, because you are determined, you are motivated by the vision, you are pumped up with that idea, that big vision, and nothing will stop you kind of from achieving it, because you are so energized by that entire vision. So just go ahead, go for it. Don't stop when anybody else tells you it doesn't work, it is not a good idea. Look at the objections objectively, work on them, try to list down all the objections and try to solve them one by one. and that's what will help you kind of get to the success. Now, it's important when you are at any stage for that matter to kind of think big. So when we started, we got the funding by being Mia, and we got the initial, funding, and we had a very small team to start with, because we had to kind of prove ourselves. And that was a time when we were kind of running almost at the end of the funding. There were deadlines which were very difficult to meet. We had actually, given away our teams to help some of the other teams, and we were just like, okay, what do we do next? How do we get our first customer? And that's when we kind of huddled and we said, let's think, let's think. And when you're thinking, think big, right? So what does it take to kind of get the biggest biggest company within the industry, and what does it take to turn them around? What does it take for our product to be helpful for the biggest company? And that started the thinking. And then we started asking ourselves, what does it take? And we didn't know the answer for it. We didn't know the answer for it. And for us to even reach to those big companies, it was very difficult. I mean, sitting in a small office, a very small team, I mean, we didn't have enough budget for the team itself, so leave alone like a sales or a marketing budget. So how do you kind of reach the CXOs in big organization? There is like no way for you to kind of just get out there and reach to them. And that's where, when we said, okay, let's see what does it take, and we research and research and research. And then suddenly we stumbled upon, there was like a hackathon which was happening. And we said, okay, this is it, let's do it. And we put everything into it to kind of really show the best of how we can deliver, how we can really drive business value, how we can really make their lives easier, and how we can really be valuable to their customers. And they really loved us. And that hackathon gave us our first meeting with the CXO. And then from there, it was for us to kind of convert, and we did get them as our first customer. So it's important that you think big. The point I was trying to tell here is that we could have thought anything, right? We could have thought, okay, let's just start small, and maybe take baby steps, or anything else. And yes, at some point in time it matters, but it's important that you have to kind of think big, and think how can you get there, and what does it take. So constantly ask that question, and that's what will kind of help you get there, because what does it take is very powerful. Now, once we had got our first clients, then we grew up, and we kind of scaled to multiple clients. And at that point in time, what happened was, I was very finicky in terms of what goes as a deliverable out. So every line of code had to be reviewed, every document I had to touch myself, every presentation I had to touch myself. And more and more, as the work pressure and the amount of work started kind of increasing, it just became impossible for me to kind of touch everything and review everything. But I tried to kind of do that because I wanted to ensure it is the right quality, it is the right level at which it is there. So I wanted to kind of touch everything. And that was not really working for us at that point in time, delays and everything else. And then suddenly we had a problem. We had expected something to be delivered, and it got delivered, and it was not what the client expected. And there was an escalation, and we were like all scrambling to really figure out how it needs to be solved. And we were a very small team, and everybody was kind of doubling up. We were spending nights in the office. I was doubling up as various roles. I was doubling up as a project manager, I was doubling up as a test manager, I was doubling up as a a release manager. I was also writing functional documents. So everything, I was like really touching everything out there. And it became crazy. I mean, even after spending nights and nights, it was not getting done, and the quality was deteriorating, and so was our health. And that's where we kind of decide, and that's when we kind of looked back and said, no, this is not the way. This is that there has to be a better way to do this. There has to be like a method to madness. And that's when we really realized the importance of having processes, systems, methodology in place, so that it gives you the ability to scale up. So when you are in the growth phase, and specifically when you are the entrepreneur, when you are the ones who have kind of written the very first line of the code, or you have your bit as part of the product, it is very difficult to kind of let go. And it is very important that at a point in time you have to kind of let it go, because you can't scale it up otherwise. And that's where you need to get in systems, processes, methodology, framework, where you will enable the team to kind of follow that framework, to get into that framework, to get into that mold, to get into that rigor. And you share your tips, you share your best practices, but then you have to kind of trust your team and leave it up to them, because it doesn't make sense if you kind of interfere and be at it even after doing all these systems and processes, because it's just counterproductive. And when you do that, when you put in all these processes and systems in place, you have to get out, right? You have to let the team grow, you have to let them make their own mistakes, and you have to trust them. And that's where the growth comes from, and it gives you enough bandwidth to think on things which are more strategic. So you need to kind of get out of the operational stuff and focus on what is strategic, and you will be then able to help your team in the ways they can't help themselves, or you were not able to help them before. So it is very important to get out of the way and let their team do what they do the best, and trust your team. They will have their own ways, they will have their own way of thinking, own thought process, and you need to kind of embrace that and help them grow. And that's how you grow, that's how they grow. So it's very important to set them for success and get out of the way. Talking about teams, what we realized very early on, it is not just your immediate team, which is part of the success, but it takes a village. So as the proverb says, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to kind of raise a product too, because there are just so many people that you help across your entire journey. And it may not be your team always, it could be somebody outside your team, it could be somebody you would ask for help, it is somebody who would mentor you, even the security guard who kind of helps to protect things. So all play a very important role in the entire journey, and it is important to understand it, it is important to acknowledge it, and it is important to appreciate people for what they are. So one thing that we always talk about when we are recruiting and when we are looking at people, it is important that they imbibe some of the principles or some of the values that we look in from a team perspective. How do you kind of share, how do you collaborate, how do you take everybody under your wing, how do you kind of help everybody grow, how do you let freedom be a sponge, observe things, listen to people, and make your own way. So it is important that the culture becomes important, and it helps you to kind of grow. And as I was saying that when we were recruiting, we don't recruit for the skill set, we recruit for the smile, because that's what is important, that's what helps you kind of get through the rainy day, and that's what helps you keep motivated throughout. And we kind of help each other out when you feel down or when you feel not so inspired. So how can you get everybody inspired and get them working towards the goal and the company and the product, which is so much bigger than you. So it is important to kind of stay focused and take everybody along. One of the things that we typically find during the recruitment is when you kind of write those job description or the profile of the person that you would want to recruit. Typically you kind of put in all the possible things which are there. So you would need a data scientist who has a PhD, who is an excellent in Python coding, who is excellent in Java, who is excellent in UX, and is awesome orator and has a beautiful handwriting and everything else, as is good at digital marketing. So sometimes we set those expectations too high, and many times such a person does not exist. So it is important that you understand what your requirement is. There is a person for each role, and how do you kind of look at the roles and then augment people with the skill set that they have opportunity to grow in, and then how do you kind of make the best of the skill sets and their strengths that they have. So it is very important to kind of take everybody along in the journey, because you are as strong as the weakest person in the team. And I would not call somebody weak. I would say that everybody has their own strengths and own ways of perspectives to kind of do things. So take everybody along. It takes a village, and it's important that you realize it. It's important that you acknowledge it. Now, taking all of this into account, sometimes it just becomes an overnight success, and everybody around is congratulating you, and everybody is like, oh wow, this is like really good, you established a brand and this became an overnight success. And that's when you realize is that there is the overnight success actually takes years and years in making. So it is it's those hard working times, it's those years, it's those tears which nobody sees when there is a success story. So the whole thought process behind sharing my story was to kind of talk about some of the lessons which I've learned, some of the ups and some of the downs which I have gone through this entire journey. And hopefully this inspires you, this helps you in whatever you're doing. What I would say is just believe in yourself. I know it sounds cliche, but believe in yourself and have the gut to kind of go behind it and be at it with your full conviction, even if the world says no, even if everybody says no. If you truly believe in it, just go for it. Do not hesitate, and it is just just the success is not very far. So thank you everyone for listening in and tuning in. I look forward to kind of hearing your feedback and sharing more and learning more from all of you. Thank you so much. Bye bye.